The real estate industry is in the middle of a significant shift. Not the kind that should make you nervous, but the kind you need to understand so you can position yourself correctly with every seller you sit across from. Today, we're going to break down what's actually changing, why it's happening, who's on which side of it, and what it means for your business starting with your very next listing appointment. Berkshire Hathaway Home Services is already positioned in this new landscape, and by the end of this session, so are you. Here's the thing most people get wrong about this topic. They hear private listings and pre-market strategy and assume the industry is moving in a dangerous direction. It isn't. What's actually happening is the formalization of something that has always existed. Before the internet, a listing naturally had a pre-market phase. The MLS was a physical book. Information moved slowly. A listing would be in the hands of the listing brokerage for days, sometimes weeks, before it reached broad exposure. Agents worked their sphere. Sellers got competitive prices. The market functioned well. Then technology collapsed that window to near zero. Today, a listing hits the MLS and it's on Zillow within hours. That speed is mostly a good thing, but it eliminated a phase that served a real purpose. What's changing now is that the industry is deliberately bringing that window back. And the critical question isn't whether a pre-market phase should exist. It's whether that phase is run transparently, where anyone can see it, or secretly, where only certain agents can access it. The entire industry debate right now comes down to two fundamentally different philosophies. One says a listing should move through a private network first, visible only to agents inside a specific brokerage before the public ever knows it exists. The bigger the network, the more valuable that exclusivity becomes. The other says a listing should be publicly visible from day one, even during the pre-market window, so that any buyer, any agent, and any brokerage can participate from the very beginning. Berkshire Hathaway Home Services chose the second path. That choice was not accidental. It was a strategic decision made at the highest level of the franchise, and it has direct implications for how you compete, how you serve your sellers, and how you differentiate yourself in every listing appointment you walk into. Compass built what they call a three-phase listing strategy. Phase 1 is the private exclusive. The listing exists only inside the Compass agent network. No MLS, no public portals, no days on market clock running. Phase 2 is coming soon. The listing becomes visible on Compass's own website, but still before the MLS. Phase 3 is when it finally enters the open market as an active listing. On the surface, this can sound appealing. A pre-market testing phase, some early buzz, no DOM pressure. But here is something worth sitting with before we go further. During that entire private exclusive phase, the listing is completely invisible to the buyers who are actually searching. It is not on Zillow. It is not on Realtor.com. It is not on Trulia or any of the major portals buyers use every single day. The only place it exists is on Compass's own website, which accounts for roughly 1% of all real estate portal traffic in the country. The buyers out there in the world believe they are seeing the full market. They are not. During that private exclusive phase, the only agents who can bring a buyer are Compass agents, which means the only buyers who can be presented to that property are buyers who specifically chose a Compass agent. And when a Compass buyer's agent closes a deal on a Compass listing, Compass earns both sides of that transaction. That is not a coincidence. That is the business model. But let's talk about what happens to the buyer who didn't choose a Compass agent, which is the overwhelming majority of buyers. They are on Zillow at 10 o'clock at night. They have saved searches on Realtor.com. They are doing everything right as a home shopper, and they will never see that listing. Not because it doesn't exist, because it has been deliberately withheld from the platforms where roughly 3 out of 4 buyers search. Those buyers don't know what they're missing. And the seller's home and the seller's equity is the price paid for that restricted pool. That is the dual agency factory built directly into the design of the system. And here's where this stops being a fringe strategy and starts being a genuine industry force. In January 2026, Compass completed the acquisition of Anywhere Real Estate, the largest transaction in the history of residential real estate brokerage. Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Sotheby's International Realty, Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, Era Real Estate, and Corcoran are all now Compass brands. When Compass says their private listing network reaches a significant share of American real estate, they are not exaggerating. On top of that, they signed a 3-year alliance with Rocket Companies, which owns Redfin, to display their coming soon and private exclusive listings on Redfin, without those listings accumulating days on market or price change history. This is no longer one brokerage doing something unconventional. This is a coordinated system operating at national scale. If you are wondering where the other major franchises landed, Keller Williams, RE/MAX, and Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices all went in the opposite direction, signing on as founding partners with Zillow Preview. We will cover that alignment in detail on the next slide. As for Exit Realty, they have not publicly aligned with either camp as of this presentation. They're not a Compass brand, and they're not a confirmed Zillow Preview partner. Their position is simply not on record yet. And for any audience member asking about a brand they do not see on either list, the honest answer is that the industry is still sorting itself out. The major lines are drawn, but not every franchise has made a public declaration. Not everyone went along with this direction. When Zillow launched Zillow Preview in March 2026, a program designed to make pre-market listings publicly visible to all buyers rather than restricted to a private network, 5 major franchisors signed on as founding partners on launch day. Keller Williams, RE/MAX, Side, United Real Estate, and HomeServices of America, which is the parent company of Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices. These are not late adopters. They were not companies that waited to see how things played out. They were at the table when the program was announced, and their presence on that list represents a deliberate choice about the kind of real estate industry they want to operate in. The HomeServices of America and BHHS franchise partnership with Zillow covers 75,000 agents and 200,000 listings across the network. Your brokerage enrollment in Zillow Preview is not something you applied for. It is not something your competitors at other franchise brands automatically have. It is a benefit that the franchise negotiated on your behalf, and you have it right now. The agents at independent brokerages or at brands that were not founding partners had to apply for this program individually and wait for approval. You were in from day one. That is a concrete dollar value benefit of your franchise affiliation, and it is something worth communicating directly to sellers when you are competing for a listing. Zillow Preview works like this. A coming soon listing is entered through the brokerage's enrolled access, and it appears publicly on Zillow and Trulia before the home goes active in the MLS. Any buyer on Zillow, all 235 million monthly users, can see that listing, save it, share it, and pre-schedule a tour for when the home becomes available. The days on market clock does not run during the preview period. Sellers get access to a live demand dashboard showing views, saves, and tour requests before they have committed to an asking price. That is real market intelligence. And when a buyer reaches out directly to the listing agent through the preview listing, that connection is free, no referral fee, no lead routing to another agent. The listing agent keeps the direct relationship. The distinction that matters most here is access. In the Compass model, a buyer has to be working with a Compass agent to even know the listing exists during that pre-market phase. In the Zillow Preview model, any buyer anywhere in the country can find the listing, contact the listing agent directly, and their own buyer's agent, regardless of brokerage, can represent them. Nobody has to know the right person. Nobody has to be connected to the right network. The listing is open and visible to everyone from the moment it goes into preview. That is the architectural difference between these two systems, and it is the difference that determines whether pre-market exposure serves the seller or serves the brokerage. In May 2026, something happened that sent a very clear signal about where the industry is heading. Zillow and Realtor.com, 2 companies that have competed aggressively against each other for portal dominance for years, announced they would share Zillow Preview listings across both platforms simultaneously. Starting this summer, a single preview listing on BHHS will appear on Zillow, Trulia, and Realtor.com at the same time. Together, those 3 platforms reach approximately 68% of all residential portal traffic in the United States. The Realtor.com CEO said directly that this move was aimed at combating what he called fragmented pre-marketing strategies that make it harder to find homes and hide important data. When two longtime competitors set aside their rivalry to fight a common threat, that tells you something important about how seriously the industry is taking the Compass model and which side they believe will win. When you look at the residential portal market and draw the lines of who aligned with which model, the picture is striking. On the transparency side, you have Zillow at 44% of residential portal traffic, Realtor.com at 19%, Trulia at 4%, Remax.com at approximately 1%, and Movoto at about 1.5%, all open, MLS-based platforms that distribute listings broadly. That coalition represents nearly 70% of all residential portal visitors in the country. On the other side, you have Redfin at 15%, now under Rocket Companies and displaying Compass coming soon and private exclusive listings without days-on-market data. Homes.com at 7.5%, aligned with Compass through CoStar. Compass.com itself and Coldwell Banker together at roughly 2% more. The closed network side represents about 24.5% of portal traffic. Your brokerage's enrollment in Zillow Preview puts you on the side with nearly 70% of the buyers. That is a factual competitive advantage you can communicate at a listing appointment. Now here is where the data becomes important for your listing conversations. Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices commissioned original research through 1,000 What? A survey of 1,000 adults who had used an agent to sell a home in the previous 6 months. This was published in April 2026. The findings are clear. 79% of sellers said they would choose full MLS exposure over an off-MLS approach. That number has not changed since 2024. When asked what marketing tactic they found most valuable, 26% said MLS placement, and 23% said photography and visual assets. Only 12% credited private or coming soon strategies as their most valuable marketing tool. The consumer instinct has not changed. The vast majority of sellers still believe that broad exposure produces better outcomes, because it does. Here is where the data gets uncomfortable and where your fiduciary responsibility comes into sharp focus. 60% of the sellers surveyed were presented with a private listing approach by their agent, and 43% said their agent actively recommended or sold it to them. Not just mentioned as an option, but pushed for it. That means agents are recommending private strategies at a rate far higher than sellers are actually requesting them. The gap between what sellers say they want and what agents are recommending is real, and it is where liability lives. The agents who navigate this correctly are the ones who present all available options honestly, explain the trade-offs clearly, let the seller make the informed choice, and document that conversation. That is not just ethical practice. It is the protection that keeps you out of a complaint or a lawsuit. At every listing appointment, your job is to present the spectrum of options as a menu, not a recommendation. You're not steering the seller toward any particular path. You are explaining what each option does to their exposure, their days on market, their potential buyer pool, and their ability to generate competing offers, and then letting them tell you what their priorities are. Here is what makes your listing appointment fundamentally different from a Compass agent's listing appointment. When a Compass agent presents their pre-market strategy, the private period means the listing is invisible to the public. Only Compass agents know it exists. The seller is being asked to accept restricted exposure in exchange for what? Exactly? Early buzz inside a network that represents 1% of portal traffic. Most buyers will never find it. Your pre-market options do not work that way. With Zillow Preview, and with the coming soon status launching in Stellar this fall, your listing is publicly visible from day one of the pre-market period. It is on Zillow. It is on Realtor.com. It is in front of 235 million monthly users who are building anticipation before the home even goes active. You're not asking your seller to give anything up to get early exposure. You're giving them a head start with the lights on. On the most restricted end of your options menu, you have Office Exclusive, which keeps the listing inside the BHHS brokerage only and requires the seller's written consent. Delayed distribution puts the listing in the MLS, but holds syndication to portals for up to 5 days. Coming soon gives sellers a 14-day, publicly syndicated pre-market window before active status. And active is full MLS exposure everywhere from day one. Every option on your menu is more transparent than the most public option on the Compass menu. That is the conversation you get to walk into. Whatever the seller chooses, document it. Write down which options you presented, what they selected, and why. If the seller is choosing to limit their exposure in any way, through delayed distribution, office exclusive, or any other restricted status, get that in writing and keep it in the file. That documentation is not bureaucratic overhead. It is the evidence that you presented options neutrally, disclosed the trade-offs honestly, and honored the seller's informed choice. And here's the rule of thumb that should guide every conversation. If you're steering a seller toward a private strategy because you want to protect your own days-on-market metrics, stop. If you are presenting it as a genuine option because the seller's circumstances make it the right fit and they asked for it, that is exactly the right conversation to be having. Stellar MLS has been building toward a coming soon listing status for Matrix. And here is where things actually stand as of today. Delayed distribution and office exclusive are already live as of September 2025. You can use both of those right now. The coming soon status launches with the dual access phase, which is currently planned for October 2026. During dual access, you will be able to view Stellar listings while still entering your own listings on the Realtor Association of Citrus County system. Coming soon in that phase will offer a 14-day pre-market window with full syndication. And on day 15, the listing automatically flips to active with no manual step required. Full switchover to Stellar MLS is planned for November 2026. I want to be transparent with you. These dates have already moved once, and they may move again. Lawyers, MLS boards, and the mechanics of a system transition of this scale take time. I will keep you updated as things develop. Before you can use the coming soon status in Stellar MLS, you will need to complete 3 required courses through Stellar University. They are 101, MLS Basic, 102, MLS Compliance, and 103, MLS Adding and Editing Listings. These courses run on a recurring weekly schedule, so you're not locked into a specific date. You do not need to register today. What you do need to do is put this on your radar, know the course names, and make sure you complete all 3 before the October window opens. If you wait until the system is live to start thinking about your training, you will be behind. The agents who are ready to use coming soon on day 1 are the ones who did their coursework in advance. That is the competitive edge available to anyone in this room. The real estate market is not changing in ways that should frighten you. The fundamentals of what makes a great agent have not shifted. Sellers still want accurate pricing, strong marketing, skilled negotiation, and someone they can trust to guide them through one of the largest financial transactions of their lives. 79% of them still want full MLS exposure. That number has not moved. What has changed is that a pre-market window is now being formalized and given structure, and the structure reveals whose interests are being served. Compass built a system that captures both sides of the transaction inside their own network. Berkshire Hathaway Home Services helped build a system where the listing is visible to everyone. The seller keeps their full buyer pool, and the agent earns the relationship. The agents who win in the next 3 years are the ones who understand this landscape clearly enough to explain it to sellers, and who show up to listing appointments as informed advisors instead of order takers. Before your next listing appointment, there are 3 things to have ready. First, know your Zillow Preview position. Your brokerage is enrolled as a founding partner through HomeServices of America. Be able to explain what it is, why your franchise was in from the start, and what that means for a seller who lists with you. Second, know the Stellar status spectrum. You should be able to explain active, delayed distribution, and office exclusive in plain English to any seller right now. Not when Stellar launches today. And third, put the Stellar coming soon courses on your calendar. Courses 101, 102, and 103 through Stellar University. Get them done before October so you are ready to use coming soon on day 1. The shift is already here. Your brokerage is already on the right side of it. Now is your turn to make sure every seller you work with knows it too.